The vibration of the phone against the mahogany table was the only thing grounding me. The restaurant buzzed with the low hum of deals being made and affairs being hidden, the air thick with the scent of truffle oil and expensive cologne. But all I could smell was the sudden, sharp metallic tang of my own anxiety. Elena didn't look at me. She was too busy dissecting the rim of her wine glass with a manicured fingernail. "I can't do this anymore, Mark." The words were soft, but they landed like a sledgehammer. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it away as if my skin were coated in something corrosive. "Can't do what? Dinner? We can go somewhere else. I know this place is a bit loud, but... us." She finally looked up, and her eyes were void of anything resembling the warmth I had woken up to for the last 3 years. "I can't do us. You're stagnant." Stagnant. The word hung in the air between us. I looked down at my simple button-down shirt, the one she always said made me look approachable. Apparently, approachable was no longer the currency she was trading in. Stagnant. "Elena, I just finished the coding for the new interface. Once the merger goes through next week, things are going to change. I told you, patience is. Patience doesn't pay for trips to the Amalfi Coast, Mark. Patience doesn't get me a table at Le Zenith without a reservation." She gestured vaguely around the room, her voice rising just enough to draw the gaze of the couple at the next table. "I'm 26. I'm in my prime. And I'm wasting it waiting for a lottery ticket that's never going to cash in." A shadow fell over the table. I looked up to see a man standing there. He was a caricature of corporate success. Italian suit that cost more than my first car, teeth whitened to an aggressive brightness, and a Rolex Submariner that he made sure to flash as he adjusted his cuff. "Everything okay here, babe? Is he making it difficult?" "Babe." My stomach dropped through the floor. I looked from him to Elena. The shame on her face wasn't for cheating, it was for being seen with me. "No, Chad. We're just finishing up." She stood up, smoothing her dress, instantly transforming from the woman who used to eat takeout pizza on my floor into a cold, social climbing stranger. Chad laughed, a dry, dismissive sound. He looked at me, scanning me from head to toe, his eyes lingering on my scuffed boots with a smirk that made my blood boil. "So, this is the anchor. The one dragging you down?" He didn't wait for an answer. He pulled a thick leather wallet from his jacket, pulled out a crisp $100 bill, and flicked it onto the table. It landed in my half-eaten risotto. "For the meal, champ. Consider it a severance package." He put a hand on the small of Elena's back, guiding her away. She didn't look back. Not once. I sat there, the heat rising in my neck, watching them weave through the tables. The waiter approached, eyeing the bill and the food, his expression a mix of pity and disgust. "Check, sir." I didn't say a word. I just nodded, my hands clenching into fists under the table so hard my knuckles turned white. The walk back to our apartment was a blur of neon lights and cold rain. It was fitting. Every step felt heavier than the last. I unlocked the door to the quiet emptiness of the living room. It was a modest place. Clean, functional, but undeniably simple. What Elena didn't know, what no one knew, was that this simplicity was a choice, not a constraint. I sank onto the couch, the silence pressing in on my ears. My eyes drifted to the framed photo on the mantel. It was from 3 years ago. Elena and I, soaking wet from a sudden downpour, laughing, eating cheap hot dogs on a park bench. She looked happy then. Or maybe she was just good at acting. I remembered the nights I stayed up until 4 a.m., helping her study for her marketing exams. I remembered paying off her student loans quietly, telling her I won a small raffle so she wouldn't feel indebted. I remembered holding her when she didn't get that first internship, telling her she was destined for greatness. And this was the return on investment. The sound of a key in the lock snapped me out of the spiral. The door swung open. Elena walked in, but she wasn't alone. Chad was with her, carrying empty cardboard boxes. "You're still here?" Chad asked, stepping inside without an invitation, looking around the apartment with a sneer. "God, it smells like mediocrity in here. How did you survive this long, babe?" Elena walked past me into the bedroom, avoiding eye contact. "I'm just getting my things, Mark. It won't take long." I stood up. "You brought him here? To our home?" "It's not a home, Mark," she called out from the bedroom, the sound of hangers sliding violently across the metal rod echoing. "It's a cage. And Chad is kind enough to help me move my stuff to his penthouse. You know, in the Skyview Tower." Chad leaned against the wall, checking his phone. "Yeah, 45th floor. View of the whole city. You should see it sometime." "Oh wait, security doesn't let delivery guys up that high." He chuckled at his own joke. I stared at him. I really looked at him. I recognized the company logo on the lapel pin of his jacket. Next Gen Dynamics. A cold, calm clarity washed over me. The shaking in my hands stopped. "Next Gen," I said, my voice steady. "You work in acquisitions." Chad looked up, surprised I was speaking to him. "VP of Acquisitions, actually. Just got promoted. Big bonus, big office, big future. Things you wouldn't understand." "Is that so?" "Yeah. In fact, tomorrow is a huge day. The new owner is finally coming in to inspect the troops. Rumor has it he's some eccentric recluse billionaire who bought us out last month. I'm presenting the quarterly strategy. I'm going to run this place by the end of the year." He walked over to the bookshelf, picking up one of my coding textbooks and tossing it carelessly back down. "That's how the world works, buddy. Lions eat, and sheep get left in barely furnished apartments." Elena came out, dragging 2 large suitcases. She looked breathless, her cheeks flushed, not from exertion, but from the thrill of her upgrade. "I'm ready," she said to Chad, finally glancing at me. "Mark, keep the toaster. And the TV. It's too small for Chad's place anyway." "Generous," I said. She paused at the door, her hand on the knob. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of hesitation. "Don't look at me like that. I need security, Mark. I need a man who goes places. Chad he's the future." "Goodbye, Elena," I said. Chad smirked, grabbing the suitcases. "Don't worry, pal. I'll take good care of her. Better than you ever could." The door slammed shut. The silence returned, but this time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like the calm before a storm. I walked over to the window and watched them get into a sleek black Porsche parked illegally in the loading zone. I watched them drive away. Then, I pulled my phone out of my pocket. I dialed a number I hadn't used in 6 months. "Mr. Sterling?" The voice on the other end was sharp, professional. "Sarah," I said. "Prepare the boardroom for tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. I'm coming in." "Of course, sir. The entire board is anxious to finally meet you. Shall I alert the department heads?" "No," I said, watching the taillights of the Porsche disappear around the corner. "Especially not acquisitions. I want that to be a surprise." I hung up. I wasn't Mark the stagnant boyfriend anymore. I was Marcus Sterling, majority shareholder and the new owner of Next Gen Dynamics. And tomorrow, the lion was going to find out he was standing in the middle of a dragon's den. I walked to the closet and pushed aside the row of flannel shirts and worn denim. In the back, zipped inside a garment bag I hadn't touched in a year, was my bespoke charcoal suit. I ran my hand over the fabric. Karma wasn't a force of nature. Tomorrow, Karma was going to be a person. And he was going to be waiting in the lobby. The morning sun hit the glass facade of the Next Gen Dynamics tower, turning the building into a monolith of gold and steel. I stood on the sidewalk across the street, adjusting my cufflink. It was a small, silver knot, a gift from my late father. He always said, "True power doesn't need to shout, Marcus. It whispers." Today, I was going to whisper so loud it would shatter windows. I caught my reflection in a shop window. Gone was the slouching, tired coder in the flannel shirt. The man looking back at me wore a charcoal three-piece suit cut from Italian wool, tailored to within a millimeter of perfection. My hair was slicked back. My posture was rigid. I looked like a predator who had just finished fasting. I crossed the street. My heart wasn't racing. It was beating with a slow, heavy rhythm. Thump. Thump. Like a war drum. I pushed through the revolving doors and the cool, conditioned air of the lobby hit me. It smelled of espresso and floor wax. The next-gen lobby was a cavernous space of marble and intimidation, designed to make visitors feel small. And there they were. Near the reception desk, Chad was holding court. He was leaning against the marble counter, laughing loudly at something the receptionist had said, while Elena stood by his side, looking like a lost ornament. She was wearing a new dress, something designer, probably bought on credit or with Chad's future bonus. I walked towards them. The click of my dress shoes on the marble was sharp, distinct. Clack. 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 Elena saw me first. Her eyes widened, scanning me from the shoes up to the tie, then to my face. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. The confusion on her face was delicious. She didn't recognize the clothes, but she recognized the man. And the two didn't match. "Mark?" she whispered. Chad spun around. His smile vanished, replaced by that familiar, sneering look of annoyance. But then he paused. He took in the suit. He took in the watch on my wrist, a Patek Philippe that cost more than his BMW. His brow furrowed. For a split second, I saw insecurity flicker behind his eyes. Then, his ego wrestled it back down. Well, Chad laughed, stepping away from the counter to block my path. "Look who played dress up. What is this, Mark? You going to a funeral? Or did you rent a tux to beg for your job back?" He stepped into my personal space. He smelled of aggressive aftershave and arrogance. "I'm here for a meeting," I said calmly. My voice was lower than usual. Steadier. "A meeting?" Chad barked a laugh, looking back at Elena and the receptionist for an audience. "Did you hear that? He's here for a meeting. Mark, the only meeting you're qualified for is with the janitorial staff. And I think they're fully staffed." Elena tugged on his sleeve. She looked uneasy. "Chad, maybe we should just go up." "No, babe. Watch this," Chad said, shaking her off. He turned back to me, his voice raising. He wanted a spectacle. He wanted to assert dominance in his territory. "You don't get it, do you? I run this division now. You don't just walk into my building." "Your building?" I raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't aware your name was on the lease." "It might as well be." Chad shouted. People were stopping now. Employees with coffees, couriers with packages, everyone was watching. "I am the vice president of acquisitions. I decide who walks through these turnstiles. And I say you're trespassing." He turned to the security desk. "Hey! Miller! Get over here." A burly security guard, Miller, who I knew had worked here for 10 years, lumbered over. He looked tired. He looked at Chad, then he looked at me. "Mr. Chad, is there a problem?" Miller asked, his hand hovering near his belt. "Yeah, there's a problem." Chad pointed a finger at my chest, almost poking the lapel of my suit. "This ex-employee is harassing me and my girlfriend. He's stalking us. I want him removed. Now. Toss him on the pavement." Elena looked at me, her eyes pleading. Mark, just go. Please. Don't embarrass yourself. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed, Elena, I said, holding her gaze. Chad snapped. Miller. I gave you a direct order. If you want to keep your job, you'll drag this trash out of here right now. Miller hesitated. He looked at me again, squinting slightly. I gave him a nearly imperceptible nod. I'm waiting. Chad screamed, his face turning red. Do I need to call the new owner myself? Do I need to tell him his security staff is incompetent? Actually, I said, cutting through the noise. That won't be necessary. Shut up. Chad spat. You don't speak unless I tell you to. Chad, I said, stepping forward. I didn't shout, but my voice carried through the silent lobby like a gunshot. You mentioned the new owner. The eccentric recluse billionaire. The one you're presenting to today. What do you know about it? Chad sneered, though he took a half step back. The energy had shifted. He felt it. I reached into my inner jacket pocket. Miller tensed up, but I moved slowly. I pulled out a lanyard. But it wasn't the standard white visitor pass. And it wasn't the blue employee badge. It was black. Solid, matte black with a gold chip embedded in the center. I held it up. The light caught the gold chip. Do you know what this is, Chad? I asked. Chad stared at the card. He blinked. Where did you steal that? Keycard level 0, I explained, my voice turning cold. Universal access. It opens the server rooms. It opens the vault. It opens the penthouse boardroom. I took another step toward him. And there is only one person in the world who has one. The elevator doors behind the security desk pinged open. A group of 6 people walked out. They were all in gray suits, looking serious. At the front was Sarah, the woman I had spoken to on the phone, and beside her was Mr. Henderson, the general counsel of the company. Chad's face went pale. Mr. Henderson. I was just handling a security breach. This man. Mr. Henderson ignored Chad entirely. He walked straight past him, his eyes locked on me. He stopped 3 feet away, clasped his hands in front of him, and bowed his head slightly. Good morning, Mr. Sterling, Henderson said. The board is assembled upstairs. We were waiting for your arrival. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. Elena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Chad looked from Henderson to me, his jaw literally dropping open, his eyes bulging like a fish pulled out of water. Mr. Sterling. I looked at Chad. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. You're late for your presentation, Chad, I said softly. But that's okay. We can start the performance review right here. I turned to the receptionist. Turn off the lobby music, please. I want everyone to hear this. The silence in the lobby was absolute, broken only by the hum of the ventilation system. Chad looked like he was trying to solve a complex math equation in a language he didn't speak. His face cycled through a spectrum of colors, red, then gray, then a sickly, pale white. Mr. Sterling. Chad squeaked. His voice cracked, stripping away every ounce of the bravado he had worn like armor just moments ago. I don't understand. Mark. You code interfaces. You live in a walk-up. I code interfaces because I enjoy it, Chad, I said, unbuttoning my jacket and stepping closer. And I live in a walk-up because I don't need a penthouse to know my worth. But you're right about one thing. I was working on the new interface. Specifically, the audit algorithm for the acquisitions department. Chad's eyes darted side to side, looking for an exit that didn't exist. The audit? Yes, I continued, my voice projecting clearly to the crowd of employees now gathering on the mezzanine. See, when I bought Next-Gen Dynamics 6 weeks ago for $400 million, I noticed some irregularities in the expense accounts. Client dinners that looked a lot like personal vacations. Consulting fees that went to shell companies. I pulled a folded piece of paper from my pocket. It wasn't a speech. It was a printout. $350,000, Chad, I read the number slowly. That's how much you've embezzled in the last 18 months to fund your lifestyle. The suit. The watch. The lease on the Skyview apartment. I looked at Elena. It's all company money. Stolen money. Elena let out a sharp gasp, stepping away from Chad as if he were radioactive. Chad. Is that true? Chad started to sweat, beads forming instantly on his forehead. Babe, no, it's accounting errors. Mark, listen, we go way back, right? Just a little misunderstanding between friends. We are not friends, I said, my voice dropping to ice. And you are not a vice president. As of this moment, you are a liability. I turned to Miller, the security guard who was still watching, wide-eyed. Miller, I said. You have a new order. Escort this man out of the building. Revoke his clearance. And make sure he doesn't touch a single computer on his way out. Miller straightened up, a grin spreading across his face. He'd clearly wanted to do this for years. With pleasure, Mr. Sterling. Miller grabbed Chad by the arm, not gently. Chad tried to pull away, shouting, You can't do this. I have rights. I'm the future of this company. Your history, Chad, I said. As Miller dragged a kicking and screaming Chad towards the revolving doors, the lobby erupted into murmurs. I watched him go, feeling a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't realized was there. Then, I felt a hand on my arm. I looked down. It was Elena. She had tears in her eyes, big, perfect, cinematic tears. She looked up at me with that soft, vulnerable expression that used to melt my heart. Mark, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't know. He lied to me. He manipulated me. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing the lapel of my suit. I was so confused. But seeing you now, taking charge like this is the man I always knew you were. Can we go somewhere quiet? Talk. I can explain everything. For a second, the memory of her laugh played in my mind. The good times. It would be so easy to let her back in. To win. To have the girl and the money. But then I remembered the restaurant. I remembered stagnant. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Elena, I said softly. Yes. She smiled, hopeful. You said you needed a man who goes places, I said. And I am going places. I have a board meeting on the 45th floor. I took a step back. But you don't have a pass. I turned my back on her. Mr. Henderson, shall we? Mark. She cried out, her voice cracking with real desperation now. Mark, please. You can't leave me here. I have nowhere to go. He kicked me out of the apartment. I didn't stop walking. I didn't look back. I walked toward the elevator, the heavy silver doors sliding open to welcome me. As the doors closed, the last thing I saw was Elena standing alone in the middle of the marble floor, realizing that the lottery ticket she had thrown away had just hit the jackpot. The view from the CEO's office really was spectacular. The city looked like a circuit board of lights from up here. I signed the final paperwork for the merger. Next-Gen Dynamics was more profitable than ever. We had cleaned house, promoted the people who actually did the work, and built a culture of respect. My phone buzzed. It wasn't a text from a panicked ex. It was a notification from a news app. Local news, former tech exec sentenced to 3 years for embezzlement. I clicked the link. There was a photo of Chad, looking disheveled in an orange jumpsuit. The article mentioned he had lost everything, the penthouse, the car, the reputation. And Elena? I scrolled down. I heard through mutual friends she was working 2 jobs, living back with her parents in Ohio. She had sent me a letter a few weeks ago. 4 pages of apologies. I never opened it. I put the phone down and looked at the woman sitting across from my desk. Sarah, my former assistant, now the COO. Ready for the launch, Marcus? She asked, smiling. Ready, I said. I looked at the reflection in the window. The man staring back wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't vengeful. He was just content. Karma had done its job. Now, it was time for me to do mine. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked out of the office. The lions could fight over the scraps. The dragon was flying.